Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He's 10-year NFL vet and Super Bowl champion Will Blackmon.
I'm here.
Yeah, he's here. And you can catch him when he's not here. He's on NFL Game Day Live Sundays on NFL Network. And you can catch him on Twitter at Will Blackmon. That's BLACKMON. And he's a great follow, especially when you're watching Monday Night Football and Jason Witten calls out a cover two that Derek Anderson called a cover two. And Will said that wasn't a cover two.
I didn't believe it was.
Yeah.
Because the two safeties, they didn't even burst to their landmark. And then you look outside, Gilmore is man to man. So usually in cover, I believe it was quarters, because to a single receiver side, it's man, letting the free safety who was McCourty, he was reading 3 to X, meaning the number 3 receiver to X, the single receiver. So the single side was locked up, and he just stared at number 3.
Right. So he showed cover 2 at the snap, but he wasn't actually in cover 2.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 2 shell, but if you know landmarks and alignments, then they weren't in a true cover 2.
How surprising is that for you that a veteran like Jason Witten, who has the benefit of sitting in the booth and watching it, like you got big perspective, field level, I can understand why sometimes the look might be confusing at times, right? But when you've got the bird's eye view, you should be able to see it like a diagram, no?
Well, first of all, it's hard to do that on the fly. I actually tried it. And it's tough to call a game, and then you have to be accurate when millions of people watch it. But that's, once again, why you have that job. We expect you to be accurate.
It's a very good point. I don't want to spend too much time on the game, obviously, because while it was not the rollover that we expected, it was a field goal kicking contest there for quite a stretch. Is there any takeaway that you have from watching that game?
It just shows, once again, with the Patriots, that every week they have a different game plan. It's not like, so I remember just studying the Patriots, watching them. It's not like they have a certain thing that they like to do. You can say they like to run it to the backs, of course. They like fighting Julian Edelman. Sure, they throw it up to Josh Gordon, or they throw it to Gronk down the seam, but they put everybody everywhere. You know, today you saw Cordell Patterson. He was the main running back today. He's a receiver returner, you know? So even things like that, you just don't know. They mix it up and they utilize every single person on their roster. So today, that's what it was. It was a tough game going back and forth, but then they ended up cracking the code and, you know, opened up the score at the end.
How hard is it to find players who are willing to be that malleable? Because from week to week, your role's going to change. One week you could be featured. You could have a great week. Doesn't mean you're going to see the ball or see the field or see the same number of snaps the next week. I don't know how rare players that are willing to do that mentally or are capable of doing it are in the league.
Well, it's more so about the organization and the system. Coach Belichick does not care what anyone else thinks. He has his formula. He has his system. So he's not out here trying to make these huge splashes and trying to get all these big names on the team. It's more so about be here, do your job, and we will win games.
Right.
The biggest example I can give is when we played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 46, they had Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco on their team, you know, who at the time was still a special talent. You know, he could probably play right now. Right. But we didn't even account for him because we knew he wasn't a big plan and part of the system and part of what they were trying to do. Now, we obviously kept eyes because maybe it's a Super Bowl. They could bring something out. But we trusted our percentages, and that was the case. So they just try to find guys who are about the program, about the team, and just doing their job and not being about themselves. Another example is Brady adjusts his contract every year.
Right.
Every year. He's worthy of being the highest paid no matter what,
no
and
question.
Destroying that whole team financially, but he's not.
Leads me to one of the questions for you that I teased in the last podcast, which is Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, 3 dramatically different quarterbacks.
Right.
From a DB's perspective, and let's say all things being equal, because I know you're just not playing against the quarterback, the talent at the wide receiver position. There's a lot of moving parts here. But for the sake of this exercise, all things being equal, who is the most difficult to face because of the type of quarterback they are? And who's the guy that, I mean, I don't know that you want to face any of the three, but if you could pick one and say, if I could pick my poison, I'd probably go with this guy for this reason.
I say the most difficult to defend in this order: Rodgers 1, Brady 2, and Drew Brees 3. And I say Rodgers just because he truly, they use the saying arm talent, where he can put the football. He can put the football wherever he likes. What's funny is people forget that he can actually run too.
Right.
So he's dangerous because he's been with Mike McCarthy since he's been in the league. So a lot of the times he could be calling his own shot. You don't know. He'll get up to the line. He put everybody in empty, and it's like what you do in Madden. You check a hot route. He changes everything. He finds the matchup. He's seen everything you can do. And he can put the football wherever, and he's never out of the game. I mean, you saw yesterday versus the Rams. All he needed was one more possession, and everybody bet he would have got down there. Tom Brady, as long as you have an incredible defensive line, that gets to him, hitting him. That's why the Giants in 2007, they won, because they had Strahan and all those guys up front, Justin Tuck, and you name it. And that's how, once again, we won in 2011. We had a wonderful, like damn near a 6-man 7-man rotation on the defensive line to get to him. But what's difficult is I mentioned earlier, they do a lot of formations and stuff like that.
Right.
Drew Brees, he's number one if you're playing in New Orleans.
And is it just because of the crowd noise? Is it just
I don't know what it is when Drew Brees is in New Orleans, but the 2 times I played him on 2 different teams, he hung up 50 points on us.
Wow.
Oh, he's unreal. But I played him outside of New Orleans, and if he's having a down game, he'll keep playing. He'll keep plugging away, but he'll end up, making some mistakes too there. So, yeah, Rodgers 1, Brady 2, Drew Brees 3.
How much
when he's not in New Orleans?
In terms of Rodgers and his mobility, I wonder how much the third element, which is not only can he run, and not only can he throw from a multitude of angles, but he can run and throw from a multitude of angles in a multitude of ways. So there are quarterbacks who can run, and you got to worry about that. And there are guys who can throw it and they can place it. He gives you that third element where he can be running and then change it up and put it exactly where he wants to, which I would think always has you guessing at where you need to be at any given time when he has the ball.
It is, because when you are facing, a right-hand quarterback, you want to force him to his left if you're, rushing him. But according to the stats or the film, Aaron Rodgers is extremely dangerous going to his left. And you mentioned he can throw on the run, just like the play versus the Cowboys in the playoffs when he hit Jared Cook on the sideline, going to his left from 30 yards, a rope. It's stuff like that, of course, that makes him extremely dangerous. So, yeah, I know every time we play, we have our work cut out for him. What's interesting, when you're playing Aaron Rodgers and you're defending his receivers, usually the receiver, he'll run the route. If he's not open, then he might try to box you out and move around and try to get open. But on Green Bay, once they run their route and they're not open, they actually turn around and go deep. They take off to the end zone. That's why you see a lot of big plays from Aaron, because they're just not sitting there. They're actually running to the touchdown. So they're trained to do that. So it's very difficult.
Right. You also mentioned Antonio Brown and how he freelances. I picked this up. 2 things I wanted from game day to get you to elaborate on. One was that Antonio Brown is a total freelancer with Big Ben. And I wonder, we just talked about Rodgers and that difficulty because he can change things in an instant. So in the case of Big Ben and Antonio Brown, how do you play against a quarterback and a wide receiver that are basically freelancing the entire game?
I don't want to say he's freelancing, but that's what it seems like, because I played receiver, so sometimes when I would have an option route, which means I can obviously go. I have the option to go wherever I want.
Right.
Matt Ryan would say, "Once you give me your eyes, I'm throwing you the football." So I can I can get out of my break left, break right, do a cartwheel.
Right.
But as soon as I give Matt eyes, he's expecting for me to be ready for the football.
Gotcha.
And so I see that a lot with sometimes Antonio Brown. If he has a 3-step slant, he might run it at a 1-step. But I think Antonio Brown is amazing, and I believe he is the best receiver. But with him and his relationship with Big Ben is what makes it extremely dangerous, because they know where each other are going to be.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi?
Antonio Brown called him and Big Ben Wi-Fi.
Nice. I like it. You also mentioned DJ Swearinger being the best safety in the game, if I'm not mistaken. What makes him that for you?
I watched him up close and personal, DJ Swearinger. I watched him put in the work. That for me says a lot because you have guys talented. Like he came over here, he got a nice little contract. He came to the Redskins, and usually you see guys kind of just using their status because they're a new acquisition who got some money. Like right away, they should be crowned or they shouldn't be held to a certain standard. They're gonna do them. But DJ, he came in and he almost kind of commanded respect just by his work ethic. And for me, when I play and study, I watch everything. I get very, very detailed, sometimes over detailed. And I love to share my information, but it was so cool to have somebody else in the room like DJ Swearinger who was exactly like that, extremely detailed in everything, formations and concepts, situational football. He knew the defense. And then what's even more impressive is that he even took it to how disciplined he is with his nutrition. I believe he is vegan or vegetarian. I can't remember. But I know he never would have a steak with us. And he was really, really particular on what he ate. And even training, watching him recover, he recovered every day, took care of his body. So he's an absolute true professional. And it shows on the field. It's carrying over.
How much did you see diets change from the time that you came into the league to now in terms of guys being conscious of what they were eating? Because I've seen some of the tables that NFL teams put out, and certainly hasn't been vegan. You hear what some guys are putting down. I just wonder if there's been an education or there's been an elevation in how guys eat.
I think what happened is that the education has been trickled down from NFL to college to high school now. People are understanding now it is extremely important to be available on the field. And if you're not taking care of your body by putting the right things in there, then you're going to have issues. And so when the coach hires a strength coach, he's like, get my guys bigger, faster, stronger, but don't get them hurt. He hires a training staff. He's like, keep my guy on the field. Right. And so when you hire a nutritionist, it's to help with all of that. So it has changed tremendously. Even I keep going back to the Redskins, but Chef there, he ended up bringing in more items that were healthier for us. And even when he serves them on the plate, they're actually the exact portions that you need too. So I've had great experiences on all 4 teams I played for.
What about you? How was your diet coming in? How has it evolved over the years?
Oh, so you're so funny. So I had the college diet, man.
Really?
Meatball sauce, ramen noodles. I was all about it, man. So this
bring those
great.
Carbs.
I know. So this is great. I would eat McDonald's all the time my rookie year. And so I remember my freshman year, we were traveling to, I believe it was Jacksonville. And so when I got, you get on the flight, everyone has their own snacks, their meals. So I walk on with my big bag of McDonald's. I had 2 cheeseburger meal and like a 20-piece nugget and a huge high C. I couldn't wait to get after it. So our Pro Bowl defensive end, Aaron Campman, stood up and kind of cut me off. And he said, "What is this?" And Aaron Campman, he is, a solid individual. He's a man of God. He is a leader. He ate well. He took care of everything. He was just a great man. So he cut me off and he said, "What is this in your hand?" I was like, "Dude, it's my plane lunch." And he took my bag and chucked it. And he was like, "Don't be eating this crap." And he gave me a turkey sub. I sat down and ate the turkey sub.
And did you give up McDonald's after that, or?
It took me 3 more IRs to finally, more injured reserves to finally think about, okay. And it wasn't really until I met my wife going into my 3rd year. Shauna, my wife Shauna, she's just she's a machine. She eats well. She knows everything about supplements. She's amazing. So she's the one that truly, truly, like, hello, wake up. If you want to heal, you want to be healthy, this is what you need to do. So she completely changed what I eat. So now I just eat clean. I make sure, I used to cook a lot. She cooks more now, but I eat clean now. But before I did not. McDonald's was my savior.
Man, I always find that crazy because I think of the training and the calories that you burn and the way you push your body as a pro. And it's just hard. And I've seen it. I've seen NBA guys do it. And I just don't know how you last doing that.
I didn't, though. I didn't last. All my injuries were non-contact. I didn't get hit. I either stepped weird, a ligament went, stepped weird, I broke this, or fell funny. I'd never been hit and had an injury that was required surgery.
Says a lot. Jameis Winston is not on the IR, but he will not be on the field at the beginning of the Bucs next game, and got benched in the last one. And we've talked a lot about Jameis and what our expectations are and what our hopes are for the talent that he has. And I have to say, after watching him against the Bengals, and I've been a guy who wants to believe that Jameis, the light's going to come on, the talent is there, it's the decision-making, as we've talked about, but the 2 interceptions against the Bengals were just inexplicable. At some point, the light has to come on or he's not going to get on the field anymore, and I wonder whether we've reached that point with him. What is your take? We talked about that this was going to be a referendum on him this year. At this point, do you think this statement by Tampa Bay, benching him even though he's healthy to start the next game, is an indication of where their mindset is?
It is. They've been frustrated for a while now, I believe. He's had over 90 turnovers since he's actually about 90 turnovers since he's been in the NFL. 2015, right?
10 this year. I think he's
10 already.
10. Yeah.
10 picks already. And the only one next to him is Blake.
Yeah.
I think Blake has one more than him, right? I believe they came into this year hoping to capitalize on their investment. Like, okay, we're going to give this thing one more go and see what happens. Then the suspension came, right? Mm-hmm. So it was another issue in their investment. So Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in the game and does his thing the first couple weeks. I mean, throwing for 400 yards and he even made a statement. He said this Dirk Cutter offense is a quarterback's dream. You know, for him to say that.
Look at what Fitz has done when he's come in. I mean, even on Sunday, he comes in and immediately things start
because
happening.
he loves his. Even the game against Pittsburgh, I believe he threw 4 picks there. He still came back and almost gave another chance, right? Because I see that they're both risk takers. However, Fitzpatrick, he understands the offense and knows what the offense is asking of him, so he takes risk within the game plan. Is what I found out by playing against Fitzpatrick. And Jameis, I believe he does understand what the offense is asking of him, but sometimes he goes way too outside the box to try to do something miraculous. He has the talent around him where he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't have to go out there and do something crazy. He has Deshaun Jackson, who can still fly. He has Mike Evans, who I believe is one of the best receivers in the game. And he has great tight end and O.J. Howard and 2 capable running backs. So I was shocked. I do understand why they went back to him when he came in, because like I mentioned a few minutes ago, they want to see the return on their investment finally pay off before they give this up. Similar to what they're doing in Jacksonville. Dave Caldwell has Blake. That's his guy. They didn't give him a massive deal, but they gave him a deal saying like, hey, you know, you're still my guy because I drafted you. So
Well, they're not locked into Jameis.
They're not.
The decision still has to be made, and I just can't imagine that even if they kept him, that they're not going to load up on him, or it's going to be a contract that allows them to get out of it, depending on, I think, when they size up the draft and they see what's available or they see what the free agent market is. I don't see how going forward they're going to make any commitment or hitch their wagon to him at this point. That seems to be clear, regardless of what happens the remainder of the season.
And it's tough because the talent is there. The intangibles are there in terms of just his mindset and wanting to lead. But you need to be able to lead with your play too.
Did you ever, I'm sure you've played with a player, maybe more than one, who was incredibly talented and yet never quite got that last element that allowed them to fully utilize their talent?
That's a good question. Like, what held them back just based off them?
Yeah, essentially, they had immense talent, but they just didn't get it. They didn't get the system. They didn't get their role. They didn't get, like, whether it's patience. There was an element there of the pro game. And I think this is with Jameis. I think Jameis wants to live off of that incredible talent. He thinks that can always overcome, because it did at Florida State. He could make a multitude of mistakes, but he could always overcome that because he could throw passes that were going to beat college defenses. And he might throw a pick or two. Because I don't think he's that different. His game is really that different from what it was at Florida State. It was just the talent couldn't make him pay to the level. He could always get out of it. So I don't see him having changed. And there are any number of guys. I could tell you the number of guys that I've seen in the NBA, going back to a guy you probably don't even remember, a guy named Anthony Randolph with the Warriors. Yeah. I thought he was going to be the ultimate point forward. He just had all the physical skills, but never got the decision-making element of when do I just execute this and when do I go for it? He was always going for it. And that's what I feel with Jameis.
Yeah.
Every down, he's going for it.
So there was one player, when I was in Seattle, they had a young guy at the time. His name was Winston Guy. Went to Kentucky. He was a safety. I mean, perfect size. He's about 6'2", like 220, and he can run, right? And for him, the situation was perfect because he was right under Cam Chancellor and right under Earl Thomas to learn from them.
Yeah.
But I don't think he utilized it how he should have. And he knows that. He and I have talked about this. And so it was interesting because once I was released and I went to Jacksonville, then he actually came to Jacksonville too. So I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to help mentor him too. Because I see it. And then, he'll just keep having relapses where maybe not putting as much effort as he should. Because he'll show flashes where he'll make a great play. But then next, it'll be another 2 brain farts where they're costly. I remember one week he was a starter, and then as a starter, he went and got released from being a starter, not even like demoted to practice squad or a backup. And then he goes to, I think, Indianapolis, and he was on practice squad there and then worked his way back up. So for him, I think he had to go on that journey to kind of learn. So, for Jameis to get benched, maybe that would do something. Maybe they are doing that to do something.
Yeah, you would hope that all the missteps that he's had, that one of those would have inspired him to dial it in, or however you want to describe it.
I don't think he felt his job was in jeopardy all those times. I think he probably knew okay, I'm going to get through this. I'm still the guy here.
Yeah.
My backup, he's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's not going to be here for 10 years, or he's not the future. So maybe he felt his job was safe. Now that his job is truly in jeopardy, after that performance that everyone saw and everyone's talking about, maybe something will click. Maybe something will snap him out of it. Because when I was a believer this year, I'm like, okay, this is before I knew he got in trouble. I was like, okay, this is the year Jameis finally gets it done. He has every physical tool. He showed you what he can do, what his intangibles, his mental ability to lead, when it's genuine. But no, it's tough, man.
So I mentioned a couple times that people can find you on Sundays on Game Day Live on the NFL Network. I did, when I was at ESPN, I would do a similar thing. It was NBA Tonight. And we would, basically, it was a little bit different in that we didn't do it live. Actually, Coast to Coast, NBA Coast to Coast was live. So that was a show that was almost identical to Game Day Live. But my favorite was NBA Tonight because basically I would spend 3-4 hours in a room with 6 or 7 TV screens. We would have every NBA game up. And I would be there with Mark Jackson or George Karl or Jamal Mashburn or former player, former coach. And we basically just watch games and talk game while we were watching. And then we'd do 30 minutes of TV at the end of it. Wouldn't get to 98% of the stuff that we talked about. But in that case, compared to NBA Coast to Coast, I could at least watch the games and I could be fully absorbed in the games. When you're on NFL Game Day, I'm sure you have screens up. Are you able to digest the games, or are you getting fed highlights and reacting to highlights the whole time? I'm just wondering for you what the experience is, how dialed in you feel to the actual games.
I feel completely dialed in because even when I'm home, I have the picture-in-picture, and I have about 4 games up, and I could watch all of them. So it's the same there. Usually I do the morning show, the morning highlights, and we have every screen up. So it's funny, we could be doing the highlight, but physically I'm looking at another screen. I'm like, oh, look at this. So I'm dialed in with every single thing. I can follow it to a T. So yeah. Also, they can find me on Total Access too. I do probably a couple of weeks. So that's been a new addition for me.
How are you liking TV? Because this is a new thing for you.
You know what? It's funny. I'm so used to, hard work and grind and being resilient and handling pressure, because that's what it is in football. So most of us would be like, well, if I did this, then I can handle whatever,
Right.
because this is a true grind. The TV media stuff is a completely different type of grind.
Yeah.
I learned that you can't just show up like I'm the guest anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you have to be prepared.
Yeah. So you walk in. If you're a guest, you come in. You don't have notes or anything. You may have a couple things you want to say, but you're a guest, so you can just casually walk in. But no, once you step on that lot, you're on duty, man.
Right.
So everything matters. Your preparation, those production meetings, just being on set and being professional at all times, because your voice right now is what matters.
The greatest challenge I see for guys starting out too is when you get a highlight and you have to give, like you have 15, 20 seconds. You have to get in and you have to get out. You have to say something meaningful, but you don't have time to elaborate. That to me is one of the most challenging skills to develop if you haven't done it.
Especially when it's live.
Yes.
Because you do have a time.
Right.
You do have a time. And that was for me. I'll get an XO, a highlight, and I feel like I know I'm super football savvy. So I know all these details, and I might have like a great list on how I'm going to explain how cool this is. But you got 10 seconds, dog.
Yeah. You got no chance.
Yeah. Right. Like I had a situation that he asked me, is it going to be Myles Garrett or the Steelers offensive line? And I mentioned, I was like, well, I started talking about, my answer was the Steelers, but I talked about Myles Garrett first.
Right. Never got to the Steelers?
I did, but I already lost like a good 8 seconds.
Right.
Where once I was asked a question, I need to say Steelers, blah, 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 get to the XO. This is what happened. This is what happened. But that comes with preparation.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a different kind of work. Yeah, I know football. I can talk football, but I need to talk football from a media perspective.
Correct.
And that's totally
it's a different thing. Yeah. I ran into the same thing as a writer, starting out as a writer, still being a writer. It was the same thing. They would ask me about a player. I had so much that I wanted to say, but I don't have the time to say it. I was like, okay, I got like 5 different things. No. You got time for 1, maybe 2, pick the best one and roll with it. And that is something that you have to learn. All right. One last thing I wanted to get to before we say goodbye for this podcast. I don't know if you noticed, Klay Thompson with the Golden State Warriors, they had 92 points at halftime. He had 52 for the game in 27 minutes, set a record with 14 threes. Now, I've been keeping tabs on the Warriors, live in the Bay Area, and Klay's really been kind of scuffling for a good part of this season. That's the problem with the Warriors, is that Steph's been rolling, KD was rolling, Klay wasn't rolling. Normally with a team...
And it didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's it. That's the great problem.
Even if Steph is rolling on his own, that's a problem.
Yes. No doubt. And they don't need all 3 guys rolling. They only need 1 on any given night. The chances that all 3 of them are going to be off, it happens every now and then. Somebody gets hurt, and then Klay and Steph are, combined 3 from 19 from 3-point range, but it happens once in a blue moon. And in conjunction with this, I'm just wondering, from a football standpoint, when you think of either a record-setting performance or just an unbelievable performance that you were either witness to or you observed, is there one in football that comes to mind? The one where you go, that dude was on fire like nothing I've ever seen before.
I'm trying to think of Favre, because he did a lot of things. I think instead of actual stats like how many touchdown passes, I think he was all-time passer in yards and touchdown when I was in Green Bay. But for him to have a streak of 297 consecutive games played, okay, that's crazy. Before they cared about the quarterback.
Yes.
I think, almost about the 320 counting playoffs, 321 counting the playoffs. That right there is extremely impressive, knowing I probably played 2 full seasons in my 10 years.
In seeing him, were there times where you thought there's no way he's playing this week? Or how conscious were you of whatever physical issues he might have been dealing with to get on the field and still play?
I don't know. It was just always guaranteed that he was going to be there. It was basically taken for granted. Like, you knew Brett was going to play. Never once did I had an issue like, oh, maybe he's going to do it this week. He's going to play this week. No. Even if he got hit hard, he'd get peeled up off the floor and then go right back in there and throw a 50-yard bomb.
All right, well, we can't forget the news of the day. The Cleveland Browns, 24 hours after Ty Lue gets fired by the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Browns follow suit, and they fire not just Hue Jackson, but also offensive coordinator Todd Haley. I follow you on Twitter. It took you back that they made this move when they did.
It did, because I didn't expect it to happen so soon. I thought the whole year was going to be an evaluation for Hue Jackson. Right. So for it to happen right now, it just shows that there are a lot of people at odds in that building.
What do you think inspired it at this point? Because they were 2-4-1, a far cry from 0-16 last year. They were competitive in a lot of games. They were showing signs of improvement. It does seem like an odd time to me.
Well, yeah, they are competitive. Every week. That's the one thing that, as a fan of football, you were hoping that they were just competitive. And they were. And I think a lot of that had to do with them finally getting some players in there, some competitive guys that love football, that want to play football. But I look at any situation, I always put myself in the general manager's shoes when they get a new job. And number one thing is, do I have my head coach? Then do I have my quarterback? Those are the main two things that you look for. And in this case, he inherited Hue, and he did not have his quarterback, and he went and got his quarterback.
Right.
So when a new GM, general manager, comes on, everyone is under evaluation. When I left Seattle and went to Jacksonville, Dave Caldwell just got the job, and he just hired Gus Bradley. So he had his head coach. He inherited Blaine Gabbert and Chad Henne. So I remember that first year, everybody was under evaluation, to the point where I was a starter, then I was rotating, taking reps with some other rookies. A lot of people were going in and out. You didn't know what was going on, because truly everyone was auditioning.
Right. And
it wasn't until Dave found Blake, and he went and drafted Blake. That was his quarterback. The GM had his guy. But speaking of Seattle, it happened in Seattle. They signed a deal to try to get their quarterback in Matt Flynn from Green Bay, and they ended up drafting Russell in major competition, and they found their guy.
Were you surprised that Todd Haley went as well? Because I thought that I from the beginning, I could see where that was going to be a potential conflict. But I kind of figured they brought Haley in with the idea, because supposedly Hue didn't really say he agreed to it, but wasn't his idea. I thought he was the head coach in waiting. So I was surprised when they kicked both of them to the curb. Yeah,
I saw that too. I was like, hey, that's smart to get a proven offensive coordinator who has head coaching experience.
Right.
Maybe they're both auditioning for that job. Right. And so to get them both out of here, that says a lot.
How different is it now, though, when you think Greg Williams is expected to be the coach going forward? You take the defensive coordinator, you make him a head coach, your offensive coordinator's out, standing head coach is out. What does that do for the players as far as the rest of this season?
I think the players they felt that the head coaches were always under watch. They were going to be under a microscope. The team is going to be built no matter what. John Dorsey just got there, and he's going to build this team. He just has to find the right guy to lead them. So I think the main people on the team, you look at Baker, he's going to be there. You look at Jarvis, Dorsey paid him. He got all his guys that he needed. So I know I had a couple of my colleagues on, well, you're messing up the chemistry, you're messing up the locker room. That's not a good look to get rid of him. At least let him finish the year. It's like, well, the GM has a plan, and he's going to continue with his plan, right. And who has a better evaluation of Hue than John Dorsey? John Dorsey already had all his notes on what he wanted, and it got to the point where for him it was enough. So let him start the process early in looking for his head coach.
Yeah, fair enough. Last thing I'm going to hit before we leave the subject. Mike Greenberg put out there that they should trade Baker Mayfield ASAP, get him out of there. And you said or responded, delete this tweet.
Delete this, yeah, yes. Because that's ridiculous. I mean, he sometimes guys I think that's just Twitter bait, man. I think I just took the bait.
Yeah,
that's silly.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. As you said, John Dorsey drafted him. This idea that John Dorsey should get rid of Baker Mayfield. I think Greeny's position was, and I hate to speak for him, and I'm not defending it, but
I see where he was coming from. Like, oh, you brought him into the system with the coaches, the relationship, right. It's like, okay, that's cool.
Right, but if anything, at least you didn't have Baker go through this an entire year. If you're making a change, you were quick enough to make the change that you didn't make Baker live under this conflict, if there was one between Todd and Hue, to exist in that the entire year. He actually made a move to protect Baker from that. And John has to be thinking, okay, yeah, Greeny, you're basing that on what the Browns' history is. I'm here to change this thing. So
right,
no,
people forget that John Dorsey just got there.
Right.
They keep going back to like history. Oh, same old Browns. It's not the same old Browns.
Right.
He just got, and once again with Baker, regardless if he had to learn a new system, that's what makes Baker so different than everyone else, is his journey. And that's why they drafted him, is because of his journey to walk on twice and win the starting job and then win the Heisman. He's gone through it. He had to learn multiple systems. That's what made him different, So that's no concern, but you made a great point. If you're going to do something, do it now. John Dorsey already had his mind made up. So Hue Jackson could have finished the year, and he probably would have still gotten fired. This
is the trickiest part when it comes to that, is because I feel a little bit for the head coach, because the GM has the ability to be in the owner's box during the games. When they're on the road, he's not on the road with them. And if he's planning to get rid of the head coach, he can mine that with the owner. Jimmy Haslam said he didn't really want to do it. Dorsey had the opportunity and the ability to kind of pitch, we got to make a change. This is why we got to make a change. And it does put the coach, I'm not defending Hue and what he did or didn't do, but it does put the coach at a great disadvantage, because he's coaching the team, and meanwhile he's got somebody who's working on getting him out of there, and ultimately did.
No, but that's what it is. It's at the end of the day, and I always preach it, sometimes it's just about preference. It's about preference.
You're right. He's Will Blackmon. You can catch him on NFL Game Day Live, Sundays on NFL Network. You can catch him on Twitter at Will Blackmon, BLACKMON. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can catch me on Twitter at Rick Bucher, RICBUCHER. And you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. If you enjoy the show, please drop us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot your review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag from Ryan Hollins, Will, or me. We also want to let you know that we've partnered with 99designs.com to help us with the new cover art for the podcast. Will, I've actually seen a couple of them come in. I don't know if you've seen them. I might email one of them to you. We've got some.
I know. Let me see these things. My goodness.
Got some.
Let me get some consent.
Yes. And no. You'll be on the review board, but I've seen a couple. There's some good ones.
Do I have a glass of wine? That is the question.
We may have to add that to the cover art. I didn't want to disclose to people that you were under the influence while doing this show. I wanted to see if they could tell. Anyway, we're running a contest right now for any graphic designers who want to submit concepts. You can find the link on our Twitter account. That's at Bucher Friends. The submissions end on November 1st. All right, so this podcast is going out Tuesday. In our next podcast, I am going to be joined by Rick Brunson. He's the father of Dallas Mavericks rookie Jalen Brunson of Villanova fame. Rick Brunson, his dad played in the league on, I believe it was 10 consecutive 1-year, non-guaranteed, make-good contracts.
Sounds like me.
Pretty much, which is why I wanted to have him on, and I wanted to get the basketball version of Will Blackmon, because we've enjoyed the NFL version of Will Blackmon so much on this podcast. Will, as always, it's been a lot of fun. We'll do it again next week. For everybody out there, thanks for joining us.